congratulations are in order. You've managed to bully me into turning a one-shot, 2000 subscribers special into a full series. Bravo! I apologize for starting with this little rumble. If you want to skip it, you are free to do so. Unless you are watching this as part of a premiere, and if so, tough luck. I just wanted to say a few things and clear a few others. First, you have no idea how stressful it is to turn a one-shot into a full series. I actually have to plan things ahead now, so thank you for giving me a lot of headaches and stressful nights as I try to figure things out. I have a basic idea of a narrative all the way to around 24 BBY, more or less. I am not touching the Clone Wars yet, because I will have to basically rewrite the entire damn thing and take into account how events in this new timeline influence the beginning of a conflict. Not to mention the difference between Filoni's Clone Wars and Expanded Universe timelines. What and how to implement elements of both and keep a somewhat cohesive narrative. I can't wait for the headaches! Second, I extend my personal thanks to people who support this series through Patreon or Ko-fi. Rick and Ultrasound7 both deserve special mention, as they donated the majority of the art commission budget for this series. The art pieces made by Makawi you will see in this episode were created thanks to their generous contribution. And I encourage you to do the same, for the sake of giving the series a proper art gallery. Third thing, I wanted to make few things clear. Yes, I know a fan with too much time. I'm even in contact with him from time to time. He is aware of me, and I most definitely am aware of him. He inspired me to create a YouTube channel after all. He wasn't the only one, but he was the last nail in the coffin, so to speak. Seeing how his narrated series got recognition pushed me into entering the YouTube game myself. And no, the Star Wars x Warhammer 40k series isn't connected to his series, other than it is inspired by it. Don't expect Crimson Razors or Skywatch to show up. I placed my narrative 5 years before the Clone Wars for a good reason. Not only because I enjoy intrigue more than pure combat, but also to not rip off from Star Wars vs Warhammer 40k series. You will notice a few similarities, like the Force and the Warp being the same, but overall I assure you that the narrative and characters will be quite different to one another. I also encourage you to smash the like button, comment under the video to appease the algorithm gods, and subscribe to the channel if you could be so kind. Either way, I should probably finish my rambling. I propose you get comfortable, grab a snack or something to drink, as today we shall witness the grim shadows that reached the Skyriver galaxy. Will they consume the light of hope or be cast into oblivion? Let's find out. Dane Marek leaned back and took a deep swig from his bottle of Razvod. The taste was bitter, metallic, brewed the proper guard way. There were other drinks nearby, even a good vintage of Amasek. If his lady was here, she'd curse him for choosing Razvod over something proper. But Dane liked consistency, not refinement. He focused on his bottle, ignoring the more prestigious offerings laid out on the table. There were even a few Tau drinks, or at least what they used instead. To surprise of many, Tau didn't really respond to alcohol, especially the water caste. A fact that caught many human dignitaries off guard. More than one noble had tried to drink a Tau under the table, only to end up under it themselves. Dane had made that mistake once. He nearly smiled at the memory, but forced it down, turning his gaze to the other side of the table. The Republic delegation, most of it at least, didn't look well. Not well at all. Not because of alcohol, mind you, but because of what they were shown. His eyes fell on the Ran Tekan, commander of the Republic fleet. A serious man, well built for a navy officer, probably half Dane's age, assuming rejuvenation treatments weren't involved. Tekan handled the horrors better than most. The always composed Arlavon looked like she was clinging to a cliff's edge. The massive, muscular alien Jedi was so tense that he could just as well be a statue. Kenobi was pale but composed, still trying to keep up the Jedi's facade. Admirable, pointless. The newcomer, Vec, captain of so-called Senate Guard detachment, looked ready to faint. Dane found that amusing. The man strutted in with confidence, wrapped in armor resembling ancient Macrack style. Now he looked like a child at the edge of tears. Weakling. Dane had seen his kind too many times. The pampered offspring of nobility, rising not from merit but bloodline. Always confident until the first shot, if not sooner. Finally, Dane turned to Plo Koon. The Jedi's face might have been unreadable, but his emotions weren't. The Keldor didn't hide them. He displayed them openly. Pity. That's what he showed them. He felt sorry for them. He mourned the losses and the horrors they experienced. Fool. Kind-hearted, no doubt, but still a fool. Dane looked back at Tekan, who clenched his fist hard, clearly working to maintain control. Drink. He extended a hand with a bottle of Razvod towards him. It will help. Tekan took it and drank. He grimaced at the taste, but managed it. As he moved to hand it back, Dane gestured to Arla. She needs it as well. Without a word, Vaughn grabbed the bottle with trembling hands and downed it. Without a word, Dane cracked open another bottle with his cybernetic hand. You seem used to this, Kenobi noted, eyes locked on him. Dane took another swig. I am. Care to elaborate? He was about to dismiss it with a no, but caught a glance from the Seeker. He rolled his eyes. I wasn't always employed by the Blackthorn dynasty. Before that, I served the Imperium of Man. The cruelty you just glimpsed, that was my home. They stared at him, as if he sprouted a third arm and started ranting about the sky gods. You served those monsters? Arlavon asked, voice shaky. Dane chuckled. Darling, I am one of those monsters. I may not wear the eagle anymore, traded it for the black rose, but I haven't changed. The threats I've made earlier, killing you, killing the girl, they weren't bluffs. I meant them. Still do. He said casually, taking another drink. And I sleep just fine afterward. Silence followed, heavy with disbelief. I once worked for the most powerful and terrifying lords the Imperium ever produced. Sometimes nobles or ignorant fools had to be educated on the reality of our situation. He laughed to himself. I've seen powerful people piss themselves, faint, break into panic attacks. One princeling even jumped out of a window, killed himself rather than process what he learned. He let the laughter fade. Compared to them, you are doing alright. But then again, you've only seen shadows. You don't understand what's out there. Not yet. Some looked offended. Most just went quiet, deeper into the pit. A melodic sigh rose from his right. Could you be any less diplomatic? Silent Tide teased. I'm not a diplomat. I am a monster. I will leave the pretty words to you. He said sharply, then cut her off before she could even respond. Now, can we get back to the more pressing topic? The other monsters? Plo Koon turned to Aunion. The ethereal answered without hesitation. As we explained, our arrival in this galaxy was unintentional. We fear that some of the horrors you saw may have come with us. The room tensed like a bowstring pulled too tight. What? You didn't defend your borders? Vec snapped, trying to mask panic with anger. We do, but many of those threats are insidious. Some, like orcs, thrive in unexpected and hostile places. Tyranids leave no energy signatures. Even the Imperium has stealth ships. Tor Ea replied coldly. We didn't expect to be transported. We weren't prepared to screen for stowaways. Dane smirked slightly. Young, but with a spine. So unlike most of her quiet, invisible cast. The storm was irregular, Niatel added. Most of our major worlds are accounted for, but not all. 2 hours ago we confirmed the presence of Zatauna, one of our colonies. It's there, but lifeless. No atmosphere. 12 million. Gone.
12 million!
Kakruk exclaimed.
Yes, and that was a small colony,
Forgemind said.
Our current death toll sits at 32 million.
We are sorry. We didn't know. Vec said, at least showing some remorse. We will mourn them, Lifesight said. But mourning can wait. If those threats came with us, your galaxy must be warned. Can you send a message to the Senate? Niatel asked.
I can arrange
Vec began. It won't be enough. Arla cut him off. Remember the Naboo crisis? The Senate wanted to form a committee instead of acting. A committee.
Chancellor Palpatine?
Vec tried again. He is good, but powerless against Senate inertia. Tekan interrupted.
And this is the Outer Rim.
They will stall or ignore it entirely. The Tau exchanged worried glances.
What of the Jedi?
Ashen Blade asked.
Surely your words carry weight.
I was there when Naboo was invaded, Kenobi said. The Senate still stalled. Our word was not enough. Then we shall go to Coruscant. Lifesight said firmly. Everyone paused, except for Niatel and Dane, who didn't look surprised. A new civilization's representative, with proof in hand, will be heard. Dane nodded. The Senate won't ignore an ethereal. Silent Tide agreed. It's a shame Ayla Secura and Wanderer aren't here. Their input could have been valuable. Dane shot her a sharp look. Someone had to keep an eye on the youngsters. Showing them this would shatter their psyche. Wanderer already knows everything he needs to know, and Secura can be briefed on the later date.
Agreed,
Kenobi said. Keeping them out was the right call. He turned to Plo Koon. Master, your thoughts? Plo Koon nodded.
The Council's idea has merit. We should prepare to depart.
Before sunset, if possible, Lifesight replied. We will use your hyperspace ships, but bring one Orca dropship. It will dock externally. We'll use it to store data for the Senate.
How big is it?
Tekan asked.
21.45 meters long, 14 wide, 4.95 tall.
Forgemind said.
Small enough to attach to the Judicator. That will work.
Tekan nodded.
Manda would be better,
the Tarelian stated in a gruff voice. This is a diplomatic mission. Orca is sufficient. Lifesight replied.
Well then.
Dane rose, stretching.
Looks like it's decided. I will fetch the girl and pack for the trip.
Lifesight gave him a nod. As Dane walked out, he sighed. This was going to be a longer assignment than he hoped. Fascinating. Forgemind tilted his head, his eyes focused on the swirling tunnel of hyperspace as he typed something on a virtual keyboard, projected by one of many drones that accompanied him at all times. A parallel dimension layered upon the real space, but far more stable and consistent compared to the warp. How terrifyingly mundane. Ran Tekan raised an eyebrow, turning to face the Earthcast.
Mundane? Oh yes, quite mundane. The warp, used by many species of our home galaxy, is far more turbulent and dangerous.
It acts like an ocean, with currents, dangerous reefs, and monsters lurking in its depths. He chuckled. The Tau use ether space, a space between spaces, more stable but far slower. Hyperspace, however, is something entirely different. Rather than plunge into the sea, you soar above it. He gestured towards the swirling lights outside the viewport. Your only limitations are mass shadows and gravitic distortions. Your data even describes hyperspace lanes, highways that allow even greater speed. Forgemind paused, frowning thoughtfully. Though it all seems too efficient. No system is perfect. I wonder what dangers hide in this dimension. A nearby crewman chuckled. You are not wrong. Navigation requires massive computing power and constantly updated charts. One miscalculation and a gravity well will yank you out or tear the ship apart. Interesting, Forgemind muttered. In our forms of travel, gravity wells matter as well, but not during transit. Once inside, we're usually beyond their reach. He turned towards the back. What say you, Sister of Air? Tor-Eia looked up from a datapad. Many in my cast would kill for the hyperspace tech. We lose years of our short lifespans in ether space. Hyperspace is a dream come true. Makes you wonder why Earthcast never invented something like it. Forgemind bristled at that, his tone cool. We have limitations. We work with what the stars give us. I doubt it's about invention, Tekan interjected smoothly. No one knows the true origin of hyperspace. Some claim it's artificial, others say it was discovered by one of the ancient races. Maybe by accident, maybe through brilliance. But if it is artificial, there is a chance it doesn't exist in your galaxy at all. Tau exchanged glances. Is it similar to... Tor-Eia began. No, Forgemind cut her off. It's nothing like Elder Webway. That drew a curious look from Tekan. Webway? Forgemind sighed. A labyrinthine, trans-dimensional network used by the Eldar. Entire cities exist within it. You can even walk through it on foot. But it's alien. Only the Eldar fully understand how to navigate it. So, something like tunnels? Asked one of the crewmen. In a way, static entrances, hidden gates. We never mastered them, and it's dangerous to even try. Forgemind said, voice bitter. Compared to that, hyperspace is blissfully simple. Sir, what are the Eldar? Another crewman asked. Tekan's face darkened. A lot of trouble if they arrived here alongside the Tau. Quite, Fire Horizon agreed grimly. Corsairs especially. They strike without a warning and vanish just as fast. A chill crept down Tekan's spine at the thought of dark Eldar that were mentioned during the meeting. On a brighter note, Forgemind offered, if they did arrive, they are stranded. The crewman blinked. Stranded? How? As far as I can tell, Hyperspace is unique to your galaxy, just as the webway is to ours. If it wasn't pulled along with them, they have no way of traveling between the stars. Trapped, Far Horizon muttered, tapping her fingers with a predatory grin. Exactly! Forgemind nodded. And even if a piece of a webway was pulled here, it would be unstable, fractured, maybe useless without the full network. He shrugged. If the Eldar were transported, they may be the easiest threat to contain. For once! Tekan quietly hoped that this really was the case. Enough fury for now, Forgemind said, eyes twinkling. I am quite interested in your vessel. I'd love a tour. Likewise, Far Horizon nodded. Its design differs greatly from what we are used to. Tekan exhaled and gave a small nod. Very well. Where shall we begin? The giant reptilian alien led them through with a quiet grunt. Two Jedi Masters stepped into a room that had been converted into private quarters for the Seeker. He sat cross-legged on the mat, 2 sticks of incense burning to his left. A wooden board lay before him, dotted with round black and white stones. A slow pattern forming as if the board itself breathed with thought. He looked up, offering both Jedi the faintless smile. Master Plo Koon, Master Kakrok, to what do I owe the pleasure? He asked. We wish to check if the room is to your liking, Plo Koon began, and to talk. Kakrok finished. The Seeker gestured gently, inviting them to join him. He placed 2 small cloth bags before each of them, one filled with white stones, the other with black. As they settled in, he took a black stone and placed it on the board. I am a Seeker. I am used to non-standard accommodations. Those aboard the Judicator are more than satisfactory. Commander Tekan and his crew did their best. Still, your decision to travel on Judicator was unexpected. The Ethereal chuckled. The Radiant Dawn is a fine vessel, but a bit cramped for Saheras and Haroshva, he said with a nod towards Kakrok. And the Elemental Council should travel together. For the greater good, Plo Koon asked, already placing a stone. Indeed, Master Jedi, for the greater good. Lifesight replied, placing another black stone. Some of your number, Dane Marek especially, doesn't seem to follow your path. Kakrok observed as he placed his own stone. He doesn't appear to believe in your ideals. Plo Koon agreed. Lifesight allowed a trace of sorrow to cross his features. Dane Marek, like many who leave the Imperium, is a lost soul. He abandoned his duty, his faith. But he found a new path, one he may not yet understand. Still, it leads, distantly, to the same place as mine. He smiled, a strangely human expression. For it doesn't matter how far back you are on the one path, as long as you walk it. A noble idea, Kakrok muttered, leaning back as he placed his stone. We understand service to the greater ideal,
but your greater good remains a bit elusive to us.
We Jedi follow the will of the Force, Plo Koon added. It binds all living things. Your greater good feels constructed. As is your Republic, your order, even your code, Jedi. Lifesight replied, untroubled. Constructed does not mean false.
Perhaps,
Kakruk said, holding a stone between his fingers.
But I feel unease about your empire, Seeker Lifesight. The Republic values freedom of choice. Can your people truly choose the one path if they never question it?
He placed his stone. Plo Koon followed with one of his own, saying nothing. Lifesight exhaled slowly. You've read our history. You know of Montau, of the Age of Terror. Our empire was not forged in conquest, but in the unification of all tribes through peace and reason. He placed his stone. The difference between our empire and your republic is simple. The Tau chose their path and stayed on it. Your republic drifts, following the will of ever-changing politics.
Can the same not be said of your own leadership?
Kakruk asked.
Is it not the ethereal caste that decides the direction of the one path? Your caste is revered by the others, obeyed without question.
Plo Koon said as he placed his own stone.
And obedience can lead to blindness.
A pattern was emerging on the board. The two Jedi placed mostly white stones in quiet opposition to the Seeker's growing black formation. Lifesight remained serene, setting down another black stone with grace. It may appear that way, but it is not the reality. The castes govern their own domains. The ethereals act as balance, a weight on the scale to tip it only when the system falters. He placed a white stone in the heart of his black pattern, a stabilizing center. The Jedi exchanged glances.
Some might call that tyranny, disguised as order.
Kakruk said, placing a white stone this time.
How can your system guarantee justice?
Plo Koon asked.
How do you ensure that those who crave power do not take it?
Black stones spread across the board, disrupting the Seeker's design. He smiled. Our empire is efficient, responsive, meritocratic. Only those with dedication to the one path and the greater good rise to power. He said, placing a white stone that connected two distant patterns. The same cannot always be said of your republic. You face indecision, chaos. One government replaces another. Even the Naboo crisis you mentioned earlier shows the flaws of your system.
The Republic is not perfect,
Kakruk admitted, placing a white stone.
But in millennia of history, it caused the least amount of suffering and actively fought against it.
The Jedi have served the Republic for 1,000 generations, Plo Koon added.
We seek the balance in the Force, to ensure the light prevails and the dark does not bring ruin.
You fear the Tau Empire will bring the dark side to your galaxy? Lifesight asked, placing another black stone to widen his pattern.
It is not fear we feel,
Kakruk replied, calm but firm.
but concern. Many trade wisdom for security, freedom for promised peace.
If those hungry for power are given opportunity, Plo Koon continued, placing his stone,
then 1,000 years of peace can crumble in a single moment. We are guardians of that peace.
Lifesight smiled gently. There it is, he said softly. The warning I expected. He took a white stone, holding it between thumb and finger. We come from a galaxy where there is only war, where peace is rare and fragile. But I assure you, Jedi Masters of the Republic. He placed the stone, finishing the intricate pattern of interlocking circles. If war comes to this galaxy, the Tau will not be the ones to start it.
They were pathetic.
That was the opinion of Torvak Ashenblade regarding Republic soldiers. He stood behind an armored glass window, watching a designated training room below. The facility had an obstacle course, a firing range, and a small field for mock combat using non-lethal weapons. Not dissimilar to training chambers aboard Tau vessels, though this one was noticeably inferior in quality, as were the soldiers. Both local Judiciary Ground Detachment and the Blood-armored Senate Guard trained below, and neither group impressed him. Their movements lacked coordination, their formations were loose, their use of terrain was inefficient, their rhythm and timing were poor. Worst of all, they lacked discipline. He had expected more. Among the Tau, the guards of Ethereals were specially bred and trained. Even when armed with ceremonial weapons, they were just as deadly as any fire warrior. He even heard rumors that experimental battlesuits were being developed exclusively for their use. That, in his mind, was what elite guards should be. Soldiers so formidable that the state was willing to forge weapons around them. The Senate Guard was nothing of the sort. Their gear was polished and ceremonial, but no real skill laid behind it. It was all for show. Torvak had fought alongside Gwevessa long enough to recognize the way humans moved, the subtle but distinct difference between green recruits and seasoned warriors. And he was certain the so-called soldiers of the Republic had never seen true war. Not most of them, at least. A handful of judiciary troops had the gait of experience, but even then, they reminded him more of mercenaries than soldiers. He had faced Brimlock Dragoons, Vostroyan Firstborn, even the famed Cadians. Those were warriors. Slaves of a crumbling imperium, yes, but deserving of respect. The men and women before him now, they didn't even come close. Admiring our brave soldiers? Came a voice from behind. He barely turned his head. Arla Von, Republic intelligence officer, was walking up beside him.
No,
he replied flatly. Really? You've been standing here for quite a while, she noted, raising an eyebrow.
I observe, not admire.
Ashen Blade clarified. Right. Arla Von leaned casually against the glass, looking at him directly. And what do your cold eyes observe exactly? Torvak considered whether it was even worth answering. Then he spoke.
Inexperience, lack of unity. They fight as individuals, not as a unit. Some can't even march properly. 6 of them have improperly cleaned gear. This one,
he motioned with a tilt of his chin,
hasn't cleaned the grip of his rifle. His undersuit is stained and poorly maintained. Sloppy.
Arla turned to the soldier in question. At first glance, everything looked fine, but on closer inspection, she saw it. The slight discoloration beneath the armor, the smudged grip with a faint, oily sheen. She gave a low whistle. You got a sharp eye.
I have training and experience,
Torvak said, his voice flat,
both of which those soldiers lack.
Harsh words for someone who never fought beside them, Arla countered. Ashen Blade bristled.
I have fought beside your kind, human. Wevesa who joined our empire and proved themselves worthy to fight alongside the Firecast.
He glanced back down.
These ones would not deserve to carry their ammunition.
Arla fell silent for a moment. She read about the Firecast, how their warriors trained relentlessly from youth, how they viewed war as both discipline and duty. In many ways, they reminded her more of Mandalorians than standard soldiers. Not all are born warriors. Some only find their fire in battle,
she offered. A minority,
Ashen Blade replied coldly.
Most who wait to find their fire are consumed in the flames of enemy guns. Their deaths serve no purpose.
Even the unlikeliest person can become a hero when the time comes. She pushed back.
Wouldn't you prefer that the hero had proper training first?
He asked, voice almost mocking.
An untrained hero usually becomes a dead martyr.
Arla exhaled in frustration. Must you always be so cynical? You don't believe in people rising to the challenge?
I believe in preparation and discipline. A hero may rise, or they may fall. It's a gamble, and gambling with lives rarely ends well.
His voice dropped lower, colder.
War is not a casino. You must be ready, on your own, not waiting for someone else to save you, because you weren't strong enough to save yourself.
She wanted to argue, wanted to refute every word, but after what they'd seen, the horrors, she couldn't. She looked back down at the training floor, shoulders sagging slightly. Let's hope war doesn't come too quickly, she said quietly, so we have time to prepare. Torvak looked at her for a long moment before replying.
Wars are rarely merciful enough to give us that chance.
Vec adjusted the collar of his dress blues. He steadied his breathing, double-checked that the bottle of Corellian whiskey he brought, reserved for the nights exactly like this, was still slightly chilled, and that he didn't look like he spent half an hour rehearsing. He didn't understand the Tau, their politics, their beliefs. None of it made sense to him. But he did understand one thing. The watercast was stunning, exotic, alluring. Some of his colleagues called him a freak for being into alien women, but he couldn't help himself. There was something intoxicating about them. And if he was being honest, some small part of him liked the idea of being first. The first human to bet a new species from another galaxy. That sort of thing got remembered. Niatel, the silent tide, sat alone in the mostly empty cantina. Late hour, most officers were on duty or already asleep. She sipped a drink, absorbed in her datapad, posture relaxed, eyes steady and unreadable. She was mesmerizing. Smooth features, luminous grey eyes like moonlight on water. She moved with fluid grace, as though sculptured from the very idea of motion. It was almost like she was designed to be beautiful. Thinking with the wrong brain, Vec stepped forward. She noticed him immediately. Her silver eyes light up like the ocean surface under a distant sun. She smiled, a smile that made his heart skip. A faint voice in the back of his head, an ancient instinct long buried, whispered a warning. This was no prey. Not at all. Those were the eyes of a predator, delighted that something had finally stepped into her snare. "Ah, Commander Vec," she said, her voice melody wrapped in velvet. "What an unexpected pleasure."
"The pleasure is mine, Niatel,"
he said, careful with her name.
"I saw how hard you've been working these past few days and thought you might appreciate a break."
He held up the bottle and the glasses. She giggled, crystal chimes on a breeze. How could I refuse? "Please, join me." Blushing slightly, Vec sat the glasses down, opened the bottle and poured. He took a seat, trying to not look as nervous as he felt. Niatel took her glass with smooth fingers, eyes twinkling. "To what shall we drink?"
"To bridges built,"
Vec smiled.
"and misunderstandings avoided."
"To bridges built and misunderstandings avoided," she echoed, clinking her glass against his. They drank. Vec finished first, watching her closely. Corellian whiskey packed a punch, but she didn't flinch. He raised a brow.
"You've done this before."
"My good captain," she said, honeyed and light. "I've dined with barbarian chieftains and high kings. It will take more than a single glass to impress me." Another soft giggle. "Still, I admit, it is a fine drink."
"Corellian whiskey, family made,"
Vec said, proud.
"We run not so small business back home, serve a few senators."
Something flickered in her gaze. Interest. "Really? You must know many senators by name."
"I do. Vex are not the biggest name on Corellia, but our contracts are solid," he said. "And I've got my own career, of course. Senate Guard."
"A prestigious position," she said, voice like a happy stream.
"It wasn't easy getting there. We are the best of the best. Security of the entire Senate is on our shoulders."
He puffed up slightly.
"The Jedi might claim to be peacekeepers, but when sabers aren't enough, we are the ones who hold the line."
"I believe that." Niatel nodded. "Ashenblade observed your training the other day. He was very impressed." Vec swelled with pride, deaf to any undertone.
"Not surprised. He'd be a fool not to see our skill."
A fool indeed, she said, smooth and melodic. Luckily, he's not. Ashenblade is a rational warrior. He judges fairly. A strange thought crossed Vek's mind.
Do you admire him?
Not quite the word I'd use, she said. We've worked together, water and fire united for the Empire, but no, he's not my type. Too stiff, too stoic. She smiled slyly. I prefer the romantic sort, the ones with stories. Vek flushed again. He poured more whiskey and cleared his throat.
Well, I've seen my share of battles.
He lied.
But I doubt war stories would interest you. I imagine you'd find Senate intrigue more engaging.
Really? She tilted her head. What could possibly be intriguing about politics?
More than you'd guess. Treachery, alliances, romance.
He grinned. Do tell, she said, sipping her drink. Vek was drunk, very drunk. The first bottle was empty, the second halfway gone. He slurred his words, basking in the belief that he was mere moments from getting lucky. Niatel matched him, glass in hand, cheeks flushed. Her voice was just as slurred.
I'm telling you, Senator As-Ak is in the pockets of Master's corporate interests.
Vek ranted.
He doesn't care about the people, just the credits, just the power.
And no one stops him? She asked, wide-eyed. What about Chancellor? Palpatine?
He's not bad. Actually, he's great. Best Chancellor in decades. But even he can't block every scheme. You wanna pass a bill? You need to know who drinks with who sleeps with who, and who hates whose guts.
He slurred proudly. You speak with a remarkable clarity, Captain, Niatel said.
Maybe I'm just trying to impress you.
He smirked. I'd drink to that. She giggled, raising her glass. To the great Captain Yorat Vek.
And to the beauty of the silent tide, the finest flower this side of the galaxy.
He raised his drink and downed it in one go.
Such a beautiful flower.
Fuck.
Vek collapsed. The glass rolled from his limp hand, stopping at Niatel's hooves. She sighed and rolled her eyes, her drunken mask dropping. Human men, she muttered, rising and adjusting her robe. As single-minded as orcs when their libido is in charge. She placed her empty glass on the table. Did you get everything?
Of course.
Forgemind's voice came from a small ball-shaped drone that was invisible until now.
This recording will inspire Watercast diplomats for generations.
Spare me, Forgemind. She pulled out a compact, unscrewed the cap, and applied a vivid blue lipstick. Flirting with primitives is already exhausting enough.
Oh my!
The drone bobbed in amusement.
You are delightfully sinister, sister of water.
Jealous you don't have a bondmate to do this for you? She said, loosening Vex's uniform and pressing kisses in strategic places to sell the illusion. I assure you, bonded or not, I'm never lacking company. Forgemind chuckled. Who doesn't enjoy a little rebel? Careful what you say. The enclaves may not be here, but memories of Oshova still linger. He's not the problem anymore, Temuvei said dismissively. And Earthcast girls do love someone like me. I'm sure, she muttered, retrieving a small vial. She sprayed a pink mist near Vex's face. There, that will give him the dream he needs. He will remember what he wanted to remember. You are an inspiration, Silent Tide, Forgemind said with a chuckle. How long before we leave? 45 minutes, no more, she replied curtly. And make sure my road back passes someone. He needs witnesses. Done, the drone said. While we wait, fancy a game of Wakey? The drone projected a holographic board, ready to be used. She raised an eyebrow. Isn't that a Firecast game? It's about long-term strategy and mathematical symmetry. Surely that appeals to both of our spheres, he countered. Or would you rather watch this Guella drool in his dreams? Niatel cast one look at Vex's murmuring form. Her face twisted with brief disgust. Then she turned away. Very well. Let's play. Saharas floated in the air, suspended by his natural psychic ability, his eyes fixed on the expanse beyond the ship. For untold generations, his people, the Nikasar, had been captivated by the void. Terrible and magnificent in equal measure. It called to them. To Saharas, the vast black sea of space mirrored the Sea of Souls, the realm his species was so deeply attuned to. He chuckled to himself, watching as strands of fate dance before his eyes, waving melodies of past and future. Here, in this quiet galaxy, the music of the great sea was clear, no longer drowned beneath the howling storm. It was as if he was half deaf his entire life, but now could fully appreciate the music of the universe. So immersed was he in the vision that he almost missed the quiet arrival of a young Jedi Knight who approached him. He turned with a smile.
Oh, young Knight Secura, nice seeing you again,
he said in a deep, baritone voice. Likewise, Wanderer, Ayla replied with a respectful bow. Enjoying the view?
Very much so,
the Nikasar chuckled.
To move through the void at such speed is breathtaking. I can scarcely glimpse the worlds as they pass.
Ayla blinked. I'm not sure I follow.
Oh, little one,
Sahara said with a grin, his sharp fangs visible.
Surely the Jedi don't rely only on their eyes to see. Use your oversight, and you will find there is so much more to witness.
Secura remained silent for a moment. I am newly knighted, Jedi. My sight is limited.
Perhaps for now, but I see many things, and I see you as well. You will grow into a fine Jedi Knight, Much is clear.
You can see the future? She asked, surprised.
I am a diviner,
he said, voice melodic and smooth.
It is my calling to gaze into the great sea, to follow the threads of fate, and read both the past and what is yet to come.
Ayla folded her arms, thoughtful. The Jedi Order, we tend to frown on those abilities. Many have tried to stop dark futures and only made them come to pass.
Indeed.
The Nikasar chuckled softly.
There are always those desperate to control their destiny. I am not one of them. I am wanderer. I go where the current takes me, whenever the place brings joy or sorrow.
That's a surprising way to see things, she admitted.
Oh, don't misunderstand. If I saw a path that would spare others' pain, I would not ignore it. But as you said, visions can deceive, and the tides of fate shift constantly, even here in your gentler galaxy.
She hesitated. How was the Force in your home galaxy? Saharas grew still, his gaze darkened, shadowed by memory. Ayla noticed the change immediately. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to—
No, you have the right to ask. But I will not tell you all of it. Not to keep secrets, but to protect you.
He turned to face her fully. His voice, though calm, was heavy.
Just know this. My sea was one of storm and madness and ruin. Treacherous waters, far more dangerous than anything I sense here. So, rejoice, young Jedi. The Force here is your ally. In my home, it was a threat.
A threat? Ayla repeated, uncertain she heard correctly.
Please, Knight Secura, don't ask for more. Not now. And don't seek the full truth either. You are someone who walks in the light. The darkness I have known, it is not something you are ready to face.
She stared at him for a long moment, then leaned quietly against the nearby wall, eyes still on the void beyond. You don't mind if I watch the passing worlds with you?
Not at all,
Saharas replied, voice softening.
In fact, I would be glad if you did.
Lina grunted, crimson blood flowing down her knuckles after she punched a hanging bag filled with rocks and covered with armored plates.
Again!
Another punch, another grunt of pain. Not only that of the body, but also the soul. She was straining her power, attempting to do what was expected of her.
Come on, girl, you are only bleeding. Your bones don't break just yet, so keep punching!
Dane Marek's voice cut through the room like a whip. Punch, pain, punch, pain, kick, pain, punch, pain.
Speed 2, you aren't tired just yet, are you, girl?
Punch, pain, kick, pain, punch, pain, punch, pain.
You seem too comfortable. Speed 3, now, girl!
Kick, pain, punch, pain, punch, pain, kick, pain. She grunted, tears appearing in her eyes as her muscles and powers were strained to their limits. It had been a long time since she was forced to train this much. Dane Marek didn't lie. He never did. He was punishing her in the worst way possible, by making her hurt herself, for her own sake. After all, she would get stronger thanks to this training. She would get better. But that didn't change the fact that it hurt a lot. Isn't that quite enough for today? A familiar voice called. She glanced to the side, noticing Obi-Wan Kenobi and his student, Anakin. The older man tried to look as diplomatic as he could, but the boy was angry. She almost blushed. There weren't any psychers her age where she served, and normal boys her age were absolutely terrified of her. Even growing up in the Tau Empire didn't change humanity's fear of a psyker. But that wasn't the case in this galaxy. Or at least, Anakin wasn't scared of her. It was a nice change.
Speed 1.5. 3 kicks to every punch.
Dane commanded before turning to face Kenobi. She slowed down her tempo and changed the rhythm, focusing on kicking instead of punching. Though she kept an ear on the conversation between the two men. And she wasn't the only one. Few crew members of the Judicator were present in the hangar as well, many of them showing up just to see if the rumors of her brutal training were true. But not one was brave enough to question Marek's methods, until now.
Know your place, Jedi. I do not tell you how to train your kid witch. Do not tell me how to train mine.
Dane growled. Kenobi remained serene, even as Anakin bristled.
You've been pushing her hard for almost the entire week. Within a day we shall reach Coruscant. I think it would be good for her to be presentable. Healing her own body is part of a training. Not to mention that we not only have your Bacta, but also a full healing sphere in the Orca. In worst case scenario, she will enter one for an hour or two and she will be fine.
Dane dismissed his concerns with casual indifference.
Who said you will be given access to Bacta?
Kenobi asked.
You, by coming here and asking to go easy on her. I bet your soft bleeding heart would do anything for the fellow witch.
Dane answered with a cruel grin on his face. Not all strength is born from agony, Kenobi said quietly.
No, but all survivors learn from it,
was Dane's quick rebuttal. Kenobi's mask almost fractured as he took a deep breath to steady himself, but before he could say a word, his Padawan stepped forward. "You are hurting her," he spat. "This is torture." Dane burst out laughing. It made Lina tremble. She couldn't remember when was the last time she heard him laughing. The human warrior shook his head, amused by the expression of rage on the boy's face.
This isn't torture. It's training. Endurance and toughness training, to be precise.
He chuckled.
I assure you, if I was torturing her, the entire ship would hear her screams. She would beg for death by the second day and be nothing but brain-dead vegetable by now.
Anakin paled as he sensed no lie in Dane's statement. This wasn't a bluff. He was speaking from experience. Kenobi cleared his throat, grabbing Anakin's shoulder and pulling him back.
While my very young Padawan speaks out of turn,
Kenobi's voice turned hard for a moment. The point still stands. She is hurt. She is tired. Why won't you let her rest?
Because the enemy won't give her that luxury.
Marek shot back.
She is a psyker, a combat psyker at that. She must be trained so that she could fight for hours on end. Heal herself in the short pauses between fights and then get back to fighting in good condition. The harsher her training, the easier will be her fights in the future.
Our galaxy is different to yours. Kenobi tried to counter.
Yeah, sure. And you can't guarantee that it will remain thus forever and ever? Wasn't there a certain military incident 5 years ago that you took part in?
Dane tilted his head, and as Kenobi remained silent, he nodded his head.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
He turned away from the Jedi and started walking away.
Unlike you, Jedi Knight, I will ensure that my charge will survive what will be thrown at her.
Lina noted that he wasn't moving towards her directly, which was weird because he—
"Armor up!"
Dane Marek shouted, drawing a gun at her. Lina used her strength power to harden her body. Her psychic might transformed the smooth skin of a 16-year-old into plate of armor. She raised her arms up, protecting her head and eyes, things she couldn't easily harden. She gritted her teeth as she felt 3 stings on her body. Anakin's eyes widened in shock and then narrowed with rage. He couldn't just stand here, not when this maniac was killing a fellow Force user. His instinct screamed, and he ignited his saber. "Lina!" roared the Chosen One as he jumped towards Dane, saber leading the way. There was a scream of plasma and the sound of cutting metal. Lina opened her eyes and took a shuddering breath. Anakin stood with a lightsaber pointed at Dane's throat. The barrel of his pistol cut in two by the shimmering blue sword. His expression of anger and fear turned into a relief when he noticed she was alright. Lina, however, didn't share his joy, as she saw the expression on Dane's Marek face. Irritation. "Anakin!" She and Kenobi both shouted, but they were too late. Dane's black cybernetic arm shot forward and clamped around Anakin's wrist. His metal hand engulfed it like a vice. Crunch! Anakin screamed as his wrist was broken like a twig, his saber forced aside and extinguished by the might in the ex-stormtrooper grip. Through gritted teeth, fighting through pain, Anakin turned to face him. His left hand open as he prepared to use a force push on his opponent, turning his pain, fear, anger and frustration into power, all feeding the storm inside him. The ex-stormtrooper was faster again. His other fist drove into Padawan's stomach. The punch had enough force for him to lose his breath and bend over in pain. His mind couldn't keep up with the shock and the lack of air. The force push died just as his concentration was shattered. But that wasn't even half of a retaliation. As Anakin doubled over, he caught a glimpse of a fast-moving object, something approaching his face. An armored knee. Crack! His nose was shattered on impact. Blood surged down his face and into his mouth. His body was jolted upright from the force of a strike, only to meet the next blow. A headbutt. Thunk! The world spun. Lights blinked in his vision. Anakin Skywalker, the prophesized Chosen One, the one who is to bring balance to the Force, crashed onto the floor. His wrist hung limp. Blood poured from his nose. He couldn't feel his saber around his fingers. He landed hard on his back, groaning. His vision swam. His chest heaved, but no air came. He could taste the blood in his mouth. His head pounded as if he was in a speeder crash. Above him, Dame loomed. He locked his cold, golden orbs with the eyes of a chosen one. And Anakin felt a chill run down his spine. The madman stood over him with a grim expression of disdain on his face. The Jedi weapon, Anakin's lightsaber, hummed in his hand. Kenobi took an offensive stance, his lightsaber glowing in azure light, every muscle in his body coiled, his entire being ready to strike. The crewmen of a Judicator similarly drew their weapons, or if they didn't have them, grabbed whatever they had on hand. But none made a move, fearful of what Dane could do to the downed Anakin. Marek glanced at them, shaking his head and making a small, calming gesture as he deactivated the lightsaber. But he didn't move away from Anakin. No, his attention was locked onto the boy, who just regained the ability to breathe. "All right, Grokstein," he said, voice cold and professional. "Seems you want to learn, so listen well. Lesson 1. Disarm means disarm. Cut off the arm. The enemy doesn't need it to talk, and if they still have it, they can still fight. You left mine intact. Look where that got you. Lesson 2. Don't get distracted. Lose focus, and you die. Don't turn away unless your enemy's dead, crippled, or chained. Always assume they are still a threat. Lesson 3. Always carry a backup weapon. Your saber's gone. Got a blaster, a knife, even a stick? No? Then you are at the mercy of someone who does. Lesson 4. Wear armor. I don't care how fast, clever, or force-touched you think you are. Flesh breaks, bones shatter. That punch wouldn't drop you if you weren't wearing a bathrobe instead of a proper gear. Lesson 5. Assess your enemy. You don't fight a tank with a rusty spoon. Train, plan, bring the right tools. It will mean life and death. Lesson 6. Don't assume. Not everything is as it might seem. He reached into his satchel and pulled out a blue-tipped bullet. Rubber. Stings like hell. Won't kill. Especially not someone like her. Lesson 7. I don't kill my students. I train them. He let the saber and bullet fall to the ground beside Anakin. Then he straightened up. Class dismissed. He turned towards Lina. That goes for you too, girl. Take your night in the shit-colored bathrobe and get to the medbay. Once you are cleared, I want to see you in full uniform. He motioned towards the training rig. I will take care of this mess. Go. Lina didn't need to be told twice. She rushed past him to Anakin, who was already being tended to by Kenobi. They exchanged a few hushed words before she helped the boy up, and together they left for the medbay. Obi-Wan, however, stayed. With a single motion, he signaled the crew to clear the hangar. Soon, only the two of them remained. Dane exhaled slowly, lowering the armored bag filled with rocks to the ground. You weren't supposed to teach that boy, were you? He asked casually, not turning around. What do you mean by that? Kenobi asked after a little pause, which already told Dane everything he needed to know.
You lack the skill and maturity to do so, especially for someone as strong and talented as him.
Dane moved the rig that kept the bag aloft and started deconstructing it. Kenobi's voice held steel. You say that after what you did to my Padawan?
I did it because he attacked me. You failed to keep him on a leash. He needed to learn he's not untouchable. He thinks he's top dog. And he might be one day, but not today.
Kenobi's tone sharpened.
You aren't force sensitive. How would you know?
Dane raised an eyebrow.
How old are you?
30, Kenobi answered, frowning.
Why? And that Twi'lek, Ayla Secura, she's what, 21?
Yes, but
because I was in the service of witch hunters longer than your lifespans combined.
Dane's voice grew cold.
I served in the Inquisition for 52 years. That's how I know the difference between strong and weak psychers. Those who thrive and those who die.
Kenobi blinked.
52 years?
He couldn't believe what he was hearing.
You look 45. The Imperium preserves what it finds useful,
Dane said simply.
2 rejuvenations while in service, another granted by the Blackthorn dynasty.
Kenobi's voice dropped.
Then how old are you? 95.
Dane said with a shrug.
If I'm lucky, I've got another century in me.
Kenobi was actually speechless, unable to fully comprehend the true depths of experience of a monster before him. The old beast observed him quietly, allowing him to regain his composure and steady himself.
You are weak of spirit,
Kenobi said after a moment.
Oh?
Dane looked actually amused by that statement.
Go on. You lived as a monster for decades, and you lack the strength to change,
Kenobi stated in a firm tone.
You are cruel, even to children, to the girl under your care. You walk in the darkness when you could walk in the light.
Dane studied Kenobi for a few long seconds, before humming to himself.
Ah, I see. I was wondering if I was mistaken. But no, you do have the symptoms. You do have it.
Have what? Kenobi asked, worried that he caught some sickness or parasite from his time on Furios.
Conscience,
was Marek's half-amused response. Kenobi stiffened.
Oh.
Dane chuckled as he stepped closer to the Jedi Knight.
Don't worry, it's treatable.
He passed Kenobi without a second glance.
War and strife usually helps, but if they don't, time will.
The Republic fleet emerged from hyperspace, at least a good portion of it. Around a third of the vessels had remained behind to construct hyperspace comm relays, ensuring a direct line of communication between the newcomers and the Republic. Leading the formation was Judicator, flanked by proud escorts. The Tau delegation stood together on a viewing deck, gazing into the void as the jewel of the Republic came into view. Coruscant. Wow. Lina whispered, eyes wide with wonder as she pressed closer to the viewport. What a view! Anakin, standing beside her, smiled. He remembered his first time seeing Coruscant 5 years ago, arriving aboard the Naboo Royal Starship. He could see the same awe reflected in Lina's eyes now. It warmed him, especially after how worried she'd been in the medbay. Thanks to Bacta, he was already mostly healed. His gaze shifted to Dane Marek, who let out a low whistle as he took in the sight.
Impressive,
Dane said.
I've seen my share of high worlds, but none come close to this.
He looked over to Kenobi.
How many people live there again?
Over 2 trillion, Obi-Wan replied smoothly.
The city is so tall, it outgrew its own mountains. Only one peak remains, visible in park near the Senate district.
Dane gave another whistle.
Most hives I visited had a fraction of that. Not bad,
he added, glancing towards the rest of the Elemental Council.
Wouldn't you agree?
Before anyone could respond, Ashen Blade spoke.
No, not impressive,
he said.
Terrible.
Anakin frowned. That reaction caught him off guard, especially from Ashen Blade. But when he looked more closely, he noticed the Fire Warrior's expression had darkened. His eyes weren't looking at Coruscant anymore. They were staring into something far away and deeply personal. Tor Eya had the same look.
Terrible,
Master Kakruk asked, confused. The rest of the Republic delegation looked equally baffled, but Anakin, thanks to his deeper connection to the Force, felt it. Barely. A torrent of burning emotion, disgust, grief, and raw fury. It surprised him. Both Tor Vak and Tor Eya were usually unreadable, stoic masks carved from stone. And Tau in general had a fragile link to the Force, often unreadable to the Jedi senses. But this was a flood. Coruscant is the gem of the Republic, Ayla began.
A nightmare,
Ashen Blade interrupted sharply.
Untold billions who've forgotten the sky, recycled air, poisoned water, pollution so thick it buried the surface, monsters lurking in the depths, hunger and despair ruling the lower levels. He said with venom, turning towards the Jedi. I don't need precognition to know it. Tell me, Jedi, how common is cannibalism in the undercity of your capital?
The Republic citizens sputtered, caught completely off guard. Dane, on the other hand, chuckled.
Well, I didn't think you had it in you, Ashen Blade.
He turned to the Fire Warrior.
Which hive?
Ashen Blade remained silent for a moment. then answered.
Mugulaf Bay, or Agrillan, as you would call it. Second campaign. No joke.
Dane's tone grew more serious. When Ashenblade nodded, Dane let out a slow whistle.
I saw the aftermath from orbit.
What are you two talking about? Ayla asked, intrigued. They speak of the end of the third sphere of expansion, Lifesight said softly. The Tau Empire achieved major successes in the initial push, but the Imperium halted our advance. They pushed us all the way to Mugulaf Bay. We stood our ground, grinded their forces in brutal battle. Eventually, we started pushing them back, but they made sure our victory would turn into ash. The silence thickened. The Republic delegation suspected the truth, but the surrounding crew, still unaware, voiced the unthinkable.
What did they do?
They set atmosphere on fire, said Torelia, Far Horizon, her voice sharper than anyone had heard from her before. They killed billions, humans and Tau. Murmurs of disbelief filled the room. That can't be, one crewman started. I was there, she snapped. I flew evac missions, hauled out critical personnel and civilians. I flew through the melting hive, surrounded by the screams of millions, burning alive. Men, women, and children. So don't you dare question what I saw. The sharpness in her voice stunned them. Even Dane looked at her differently now, his expression shifting to one of respect.
I knew there was something special about you. Why a youngster like you gets chosen to be part of Elemental Council? I knew it had to be something impressive, he said. Didn't expect this though.
I did my duty, Far Horizon replied quietly, turning away from the viewport.
As did I,
Ashenblade added.
I was there too, for the liberation and the fall. I am Ashenblade, because of the ashes of Agrellan.
Arlavon blinked, stunned. I thought that was just your name.
We of the Firecast take names born from our deeds,
Ashenblade said.
I lost my entire Talisera, my bounded fire team, in the fires of Mugulaf Bay. I took my new name from the ashes.
His voice was steel, his gaze cut like a blade.
I carry the memory of that failure, of that broken world, and I made a promise to never allow it to happen again, no matter what or who stands in my way.
The final words were aimed squarely at the Jedi and Arlavon. Silence reigned as the Judicator drifted towards the planet below. Finally, Kenobi cleared his throat. We should get to our ships. I believe a few senators are waiting for us on the surface. Padme Amidala kept her eyes on the unusual-looking vehicle descending towards the landing pad. Painted white and marked with vivid red and yellow symbols. Orca, as it was apparently called, looked like a brick with 4 oversized engines strapped to its frame. Yet, despite its bulky and blocky design, it flew with surprising grace, accompanied by a Republic shuttle. Around her, the rest of the Senate's welcoming delegation stood assembled, ready to greet the long-awaited guests from another galaxy. At the head of the group stood Chancellor Palpatine, his expression serene, hands folded at his waist. He was flanked by his 2 ever-present aides, the towering Mas Amida, Vice Chair of the Senate, and the pale, inscrutable Sly Moore. Their presence was as expected as it was unsettling. To Padme's left stood her allies, Senator Bail Organa and Mon Mothma, both wearing calm expressions that didn't quite reach their eyes. Beside the Chancellor, Orn Frita of Ryloth leaned in to whisper something quietly, his bulbous form hunched in slightly towards Palpatine's ear. Nearby, As-Ak, the three-eyed Grand Senator from Malaster, tracked the Tau ship descent with unblinking attention, tension etched on his face. Padme allowed her gaze to drift towards the approaching shuttles once more. But her thoughts drifted not to the Tau, but to the Jedi returning with them. Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker. It's been 5 years since she had last seen them. At the close of the Naboo crisis, she wondered what they would be like now. Nervous? Bail Organa asked, a small smile tugging at his lips. Of course, Padme replied under her breath. I'm the youngest one here. I've only been a senator for a year. And you already made waves. Mon Mothma said with a soft chuckle. Relax. It's just a historic first contact meeting with an entirely unknown civilization from a different galaxy. Nothing too serious. Padme allowed herself a smile. I just hope I don't make a fool of myself. You will do splendidly, my dear, I am certain of it. Palpatine said warmly, casting her a grandfatherly glance. Though I must admit, I'm curious. Jedi Master Plo Koon personally requested that the Tau be granted immediate audience before the Senate. Quite unusual, wouldn't you say? They claim to bring a message of extreme urgency, noted As-Ak grimly. Urgent to us, or to them? Came the calm, knowing voice of Master Yoda, who now stepped forward, hands resting on his cane. He was flanked by the 2 members of High Jedi Council, Mace Windu, standing tall and ever watchful, and Adi Gallia, whose sharp gaze betrayed both diplomacy and instinctive caution. I suspect both. Bail said evenly as the shuttles touched down with a gentle hiss. Either way, we will find out soon enough. The Republic delegation stepped out first, led by Master Plo Koon. Padme smiled warmly at the sight of Kenobi, and then her eyes found Anakin. Good stars, he has grown. The boy she remembered was quickly becoming a man. Her gaze drifted to the Tau shuttle, a boxy, unfamiliar shape. The rear hatch hissed open. She almost jumped as a floating Ursine alien emerged. White fur rippling, limbs folded neatly, gliding forward on unseen power. It didn't walk, it just drifted, its movement unnaturally smooth. Then came a giant reptilian warrior, emerald scales glinting under the Coruscant sun. Bigger than any Trandoshan she'd ever seen, scarred and armored, carrying a massive shield and a halberd that shimmered with energy. Next were 2 humans, At least they looked human. They wore matching colors: black, blue and purple. The older man had a cybernetic black arm and piercing golden eyes. The girl beside him looked only a few years younger than Padme herself. Black hair, violet eyes, confident smile. Their eyes met. The girl smiled brightly. Padme returned it with a composed nod. But her eyes couldn't help but flick to the arsenal each of them carried. Then came unmistakable forms of the Tau themselves. Blue-grey skin, hoofed feet, and a single breathing slit on their forehead where nose should be. There were 5 of them, 1 for each caste. A fire warrior in grey-green armor, a cloak fluttering behind him. He was calm and focused, a war statue given life. Water caste diplomat in flowing white-blue robes, her round hat sitting at a slight angle. She wore a sweet smile, but her grey eyes held secrets. An air caste pilot, silent and tense, still in her flight gear, eyes always moving. An earth caste engineer surrounded by buzzing drones, fingers flying across holographic interfaces, excited smile on his blocky face. And finally, the ethereal, the seeker, dressed in simple yet regal yellow robes, his serenity matched only by the quiet authority he exuded. A bladed staff rested lightly in his hand. Both delegations approached the waiting Jedi and senators. Palpatine stepped forward, his ever-charming smile in place. "Master Plo Koon, what a pleasure to see you again, and with such splendid company."
"The pleasure is mine, Chancellor."
Plo Koon nodded.
"Allow me to introduce the Elemental Council, representatives of the Tau Empire."
He named each member of a Tau delegation in turn, followed by introductions of the senators and Jedi. Polite pleasantries were exchanged, but the tension remained tangible.
"They bring urgent information,"
Plo Koon added.
"The Senate must hear them."
Master Yoda and Master Windu exchanged glances, feeling the unease radiating from their fellow council member. Send the message to us, you could not?" Yoda asked. Silent Tide, the water caste diplomat, stepped forward and spoke in flawless basic, clear, elegant, and unexpected by many of those present. "The data we carry is extraordinary, sensitive, difficult to believe. This meeting was deemed more effective than a message." "Do you bring proof?" Senator Ask-Ak asked, squinting. "Or are you just here to scare us?" "I assure you, Senator," the Seeker said calmly, "that the fear you will experience upon hearing our message is unavoidable. For it will mirror the fear we felt upon discovering the monsters of our galaxy." That sent a ripple through the crowd. The Jedi and senators glanced among each other. Before anyone could reply, Kenobi stepped forward.
"I can confirm the threat is real. The sooner the Senate is presented with this information, the sooner it can act."
"You've already spent a week in transit,"
Senator Orn Frita said cheerfully.
"Surely you are a bit tired. A bit of rest wouldn't hurt."
"The matter is of utmost importance," Silent Tide said, her voice now like still water before the storm. "It is the highest priority of our council. If the Senate refuses to hear us, we will contact the media and inform the public instead." That stirred the crowd again. Even Padme raised her eyebrows. The Tau weren't bluffing. They hadn't come across the galaxy to be ignored. I'm sure that won't be necessary. Padme stepped forward smoothly. Thanks to Chancellor Palpatine's efforts, the Senate stands ready to welcome your delegation. Palpatine smiled with humble grace. I'm but a servant of the Republic. The meeting would be impossible without the cooperation of my fellow senators.
I'm sure that's the case,
Dane Marek said, fixing one of the older senators with a piercing stare.
But we can all agree that time is critical. I insist that we speak to the Senate immediately.
Indeed.
Bail Organa nodded. Let's proceed to the Senate chamber at once.
A fine idea,
Palpatine said with a chuckle.
Please, join us.
Just then, one of the Senate guards leaned towards the Chancellor.
Sir, shouldn't we disarm them?
The air grew tense. The Tau delegation stiffened. Dane Marek's expression turned to stone.
Out of the question,
he said flatly.
This might be a diplomatic mission, but I've seen how those can go wrong.
He looked the guards over, slow and deliberate.
We have no ship in orbit, no escape route, just our minds, our message, and our weapons. You have fleets, Jedi, and a fortress of a planet. If they can walk around with lightsabers, he tapped the hilt of his power sword, so can we.
The guards gripped their rifles tighter. Dane's golden eyes gleamed with quiet menace. Then he grinned, a dangerous, toothy smirk.
Now listen up, boys, he said. The first one of you who aims one of those cute toy guns at me is gonna have to eat it.
He leaned in.
Stock first, no soy sauce.
The guards blinked.
None of them laughed.
He's not joking, Lina Vos said in trembling voice. I saw him do it once. There was screaming and so much blood. Please, don't make me see that again. Before things could escalate further, Palpatine cleared his throat.
That won't be necessary, Major. The presence of the Jedi and your men will be sufficient. Won't you agree?
The guard commander hesitated, then nodded.
As you wish, Chancellor.
With that, the three groups began their march to the Senate chamber. Padme moved to the rear, matching pace with Kenobi and Anakin. Senator Amidala, Kenobi greeted with a smile.
It's been some time.
It has been indeed, Master Kenobi. Her smile warmed as she turned to Anakin. And you, look how you've grown. The 14-year-old flushed.
Just a bit, Senator?
She laughed softly, glancing back at the rest of the delegation. Her gaze landed on Master Yoda, now deep in conversation with the floating R-sign and the two human delegates. Anything worth mentioning? She asked. Anakin's voice dropped to a whisper. That old man is a monster. Be careful. I noticed, Padme began, but Kenobi gently interrupted.
My Padawan is right. Dane Marek is dangerous. Perhaps the most dangerous of the entire council. Don't underestimate him. He might not be a diplomat, but he is a menace.
She looked back, eyes narrowing slightly, just in time to hear the exchange in the back.
Judge me by my size, do you?
Yoda asked Dane.
Feel your emotions. I can. Strong feelings against me. You have.
Dane narrowed his eyes.
You remind me of something. A Gretchen or a Snotling.
Dane Marek,
said Sacheras with a sigh.
Could you at least pretend to act diplomatically? Hey, we were all thinking about it,
Dane said defensively.
Not my fault that the resemblance is there.
What are Gretchen and Snotlings? Master Adigalia asked, confused. The council members exchanged glances, coming to silent agreement.
Wait a little longer, Dane said. You will find out in detail.
He paused.
But I warn you, you won't enjoy it.
Yoda exchanged a grim look with Windu as the shadow of a Senate dome fell over them. Niatel took in the massive chamber of a Republic Senate. It looked almost like an upside-down dome, with thousands of round hovering platforms tasked in bringing representatives of the Senate closer to the spike on which sat the seats of a Chancellor and Vice Chair. Because of the size of the Elemental Council, as well as the bulk of some of them, they had to be split into multiple platforms. Intentionally, each of them had at least one warrior, keeping others secure. One of the platforms had Ethereal, Earthcast, and Tarelian warrior. On the second, Nikasar and 2 humans. She stood side by side with the Fireblade and Aircast pilot as her platform moved forward, deeper into the chamber. A barely visible gesture from the Ethereal raised her spirits. The thousands of eyes looking at her at this moment were not half as intimidating as they were moments before. Honorable Senators of the Republic, representatives of the people of this galaxy. She paused just long enough for her voice to echo, for attention to focus. I greet you on behalf of the Tau Empire, a commonwealth of species united by shared vision of a better future. We are explorers, diplomats, warriors, engineers, thinkers. We call our philosophy, our guiding principle, the greater good. An ideal that elevates cooperation over conquest, reason over rage, progress over stagnation. She let the words hang for a moment, eyes scanning the crowd. We did not come to this galaxy by choice. Her voice softened, yet carried farther now. Our arrival here was unexpected. Suddenly, a violent anomalous storm tore through the stars. One moment we were on the edge of our own galaxy, charting new systems, expanding our sphere of influence, bringing peace and stability to countless worlds. The next, we were here, among you, strangers among strange stars. Another pause, a heavier one, and we fear we may not have come alone. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Niatel continued, unfazed. There are forces in our galaxy, ancient, malevolent, insatiable. They do not use reason, they only consume, corrupt, or conquer. They are not bound by logic or diplomacy. If they found the same path as we did, if they followed. With a single gesture, ForgeMind activated his drones, who flew out in all directions before they activated their hologram displays. In but a moment, images of monsters of a grimdark galaxy took form in the Senate chamber. A roaring orc, a silent marching Necron phalanx, the thunderous charge of angels of death, the chittering tide of a tyrannid swarm. A wave of dread swept through the Senate, as for the first time they witnessed the monsters of a grim dark galaxy. She looked directly towards the Chancellor platform, and then out to the wider chamber.
When your galaxy is in grave danger, as is ours. She hid her emotions, but was pleased. The recordings had been chosen for this occasion by her. The Tau Empire have no ill will towards the people of this galaxy. We stand here ready to answer your questions, to share our findings, not for any gain or guarantee of alliance, but because of who we are. We are followers of Tau Va, of a greater good. Our goal always was and always will be the happiness and security of all people who are willing to walk the one path. She declared, because we believe that together we have a better chance to not only survive, but to thrive, rather than to fight against one another.
This is insanity,
roared Hado Krask, a Trandoshan senator, leaping to his feet.
You expect us to believe you stumbled into our galaxy by accident? That these creatures are real? Those images could be easily fabrications designed to intimidate.
Other voices rose in agreement.
Where is the proof?
Silent Tide turned to Forgemind. A nod passed between them. Forgemind's smirk was subtle, predatory. A few taps on his console summoned a cluster of large drones. Each carried a sealed cylinder. The Senate was still in uproar when Forgemind activated the release mechanism, and the cargo of each drone was revealed. Silence fell. In the first tank, suspended in yellowish liquid, was a human infected with gene-stealer virus. Ridge-browed, sharp-toothed, with characteristic grotesque third arm. The second held an orc skeleton. It was one of the bigger examples of typical boys. Hunched beast with massive teeth. Alongside it were an orc chopper and shooter. The next one held the body of a Tyranid warrior. The body wasn't complete. The beast suffered a direct meeting with a plasma cannon of a crisis suit. But it was intact enough to steal the breath away from anyone who looked into the dead eyes of a preserved thing. Fourth drone held a display case with several weapons of the Imperium of Man, few documents and a helmet of a space marine, a white scar looking by the markings. The final case held a dead mask of a Necron, a preserved body of Arakan warrior, and several other trinkets, weapons and artifacts from different civilizations that Tau encountered and deemed too dangerous to welcome into their commonwealth. Many of which were now extinct because of a judgment, but the senators didn't need to know that detail just yet. The monsters we speak of are real. It was Seeker himself who spoke up, his platform moving to the middle of the room. The unclenchable bloodlust of the orcs, the genocidal xenophobia of the Imperium of Man, the unimaginable hunger of a Tyranid swarm. His voice was grim, yet powerful. Those monsters could not only be already within your galaxy, but preparing to spread like a plague. He glanced at Forgemind. Explain the threat of contamination. As you wish. Forgemind nodded and turned towards the orc hologram. The orcs aren't just a species. Their entire ecosystem, a bioweapon that went rogue, created for a singular purpose of waging war. They might seem animalistic to you, but they are in fact a fusion of animal, fungi, and algae. They reproduce through spores and have uncanny ability to turn worthless scrap into not only dangerous weapons, but even starships. Once the spores take hold on the planet, It's almost impossible to get rid of them. Then he pointed at Tyranid and a gene-stealer hybrid. The Tyranid swarm is an extragalactic giga-organism. What you see here is not a member of a species, but rather a cell in an organism. The Tyranids are directed by the hive mind, a malicious collective intelligence of a species. Their only goal is to consume biomass, to leave planets as dead husks as they continue to travel between galaxies. Gene-stealer virus is one of their tools, the vanguard to their hunger. It turns the population of a planet into willing pawns that won't resist getting consumed and digested when the main fleet arrives. Finally, he turned towards the artifacts from the Imperium. The Imperium of Man is a xenophobic, theocratic, authoritarian, feudal federation made out of numerous planets and organizations of humans whose only goal is to spread their violent faith, preserve their Imperium, and kill anything that isn't human. He announced. How the humans exist both in our galaxy and yours is still a mystery to us. The Senate chamber went silent. The delegates of the galaxy exchanged looks, unsure how to react, what to say. Thankfully, Palpatine managed to retain his composure, to an extent. We thank you for this information. The Republic is grateful for your warning, though... His eyes narrowed towards the Space Marine helmet. The fact that humans exist in your galaxy is troubling, especially since you brought two of them here. All eyes turned to Dane Marek and Lina Voss. Lina swallowed hard and stepped back. Marek did not.
The girl has no knowledge of the Imperium,
Dane stated calmly.
She was born in the periphery between the Imperium and the Tau Empire, outside the jurisdiction of both. I, on the other hand, not only lived in the Imperium.
He took out a cigarette and lighted it up.
I served it.
Gasps rippled through the chamber.
I was part of their war machine, and I fought against the orcs, Tyranids, and numerous other monsters, and I assure you, you can't start to imagine the horror of our galaxy.
His voice was that of thunder, hatred, and hidden pain, powerful enough to silence thousands of senators, as if he was a manifestation of a force of nature, rather than a mere man. To surprise of many, it was Padme Amidala who spoke up. We might surprise you. This galaxy has had its share of monsters and tyrants in the past. She pressed. You were part of this Imperium, of a force that might already be among our stars. Tell us what they are. What is the Imperium? Dane Marek eyed her silently for a long moment, as if measuring her worth, as well as thinking of what he would say to all who have gathered here. He exhaled smoke, the orange glow of a cigarette briefly casting his scarred face in a flickering light, his golden eyes shining with dark fire.
You want to know what the Imperium is?
He looked around the chamber, thousands of eyes on him, not judging, listening.
Then hear this.
His voice deepened, firm and unrelenting.
For over 10,000 years, the Imperium of Man has endured, a rotting colossus bound together by blood, faith, and fire. The Gold Emperor of mankind sits immobile upon the golden throne of Terra, a corpse king of 1 billion worlds. He is a rule of silence and sacrifice, as is his Imperium. Both are powered by the lives of innocent and the guilty, both fed to a dying machine from the dark age of technology. The lights seemed to dim as the silence grew heavier. Even the drones stopped moving. It is a galaxy where armies without a number march across the stars, where entire worlds are ground to ash in the name of survival or revenge. He flicked ashes off his cigarette, the ember now glowing brighter. This isn't an empire of progress or enlightenment. It is ignorance made manifest, a superstition of steel. Technology is revered, but no longer understood. Progress is heresy. Knowledge is locked away under seals of blood and wax. Each piece of this rusted machine is devoted to singular purpose: war. And it has to be, because the things they face, the orcs, the tyrannids, the twisted madmen, power-obsessed force users, and worst things still, they are not just enemies. They are heralds of oblivion, of the unmaking of a very reality. In their shadows, even the Imperium's madness starts to look like reason. He took one last drag, then flickered the cigarette to the floor, crushing it underfoot. So forget your dreams of peace, my dear senators. Forget the promise of progress and understanding. For in my galaxy, hope is at the edge of extinction. Unity and mercy is held by the very few, and they are outnumbered and outgunned. In our galaxy, there is only war, endless and merciless. If the monsters that exist in our galaxy followed us to yours, then soon enough you will learn the same lesson we did a long time ago. He looked towards the central platform, straight at Palpatine. There is no peace among the stars, only eternity of carnage and slaughter, and the laughter of things that hide in the dark. Stunned, dreadful silence fell upon everything, as the words of Dane Marek were carved into the mind of every person present, like words into a marble block. Seeker tapped his bladed staff, a seemingly quiet noise, now heard as if it was a ring of a bell. Dane Marek speaks the truth. Lifesight said, his voice rolling over the chamber like a tide, deep, calm, unstoppable. In our galaxy, the Tau Empire was one of the very few forces to resist the tide of madness. We did not fight for conquest or glory, but for peace, for unity, for the greater good. And it is the judgment of a High Elemental Council and the Ethereal Caste that the horrors we fled must not be allowed to take the root in this galaxy. Not here, not ever. As the senator stirred from stunned silence, Lifesight raised his voice, not louder, but firmer, colder. Therefore, by decree of the Tau Empire, I deliver this ultimatum to the Galactic Republic
and to all sovereign states, organizations, and powers of this galaxy. Any individual, group, or government that shelters, protects, or cooperates with unapproved entities from our galaxy shall be deemed a threat to the greater good. Any such act shall be considered a declaration of hostilities, an act of war. Gasps and exclamation ripped across the Senate chamber, but Lifesight's eyes remained calm. We do not seek war. We offer peace. But peace requires vigilance and the will to act. We intend to protect this galaxy from eternal war, even if we must wage one to do it. He bowed his head slightly. By Tau Va, so shall it be.